It doesn't sound like this grandiose or huge like nugget that I'm dropping in this video. Like, if you do this, you can save $10,000 in 3 months. It's just not always that simple, right? It is the step by step. It is the day by day. It is the decision by decision that adds up over time. Hey guys, I'm Amber and welcome to The Ambient Life. So in today's video, I am doing part 2 of my Millennial Homebuyer series, where I am gonna walk you through all things expenses and savings. So if you're interested in hearing about how I saved in less than 3 months for 2 homes and some of the expenses that I ran into and things that you may be able to expect from your experience, just stay tuned. So this is going to be the second part of my Millennial Homebuyer series. If you have not seen the first video, it is definitely necessary. My first video takes you through my testimony and kind of telling you about how I purchased 2 homes in literally less than 3 months. So if you have not seen that video, please go check it out, because everything I'm going to talk about in this video is basically from the understanding that you kind of know my story to begin with. And so we're just going to pick back up essentially where we left off in my first video. So I have literally my closing disclosure. Cause people crazy. Okay. I have, y'all see, it's my, y'all can't see. Let me do it this way. Okay, so I have my closing disclosure from my first home, so that I can really like talk you through and walk you through each of the expenses that I've had. But first I want to start with savings. And so the way I think about savings is in 2 buckets. There are things that you can literally get rid of, and then there are things that you can cut back on. Those were the 2 categories that I was sort of thinking of. So let's get into the things you can get rid of. So the first thing I did when you guys know, I planted that seed in like August, and then my landlord was ready to roll. And so I didn't have much time to get the money that I needed together in order to be able to get the down payment. So I immediately started taking inventory of my expenses. And so the first thing I did was looked at, what can I cut back on? I would encourage you, even if you're not looking to buy a home, just to do this from time to time, is to take inventory of your expenses. Go grab your monthly statement from your bank account, from your spending account, and look and see what's coming out. You may have a subscription in there that you're not really using. You may have something that is sort of like a luxury that you're willing to sacrifice because you're trying to get to this goal. So start looking at your expenses and say, okay, what is not necessity, right? For me, it was about 4 months. I was like, we gotta lock in, Amber. For 4 months, we gotta lock in. You may have to give up cable, one of the things I got rid of. You may have to give up the gym, one of the things I got rid of, for these 4 months. Just because you're giving it up for this time frame doesn't mean you're letting go of it completely, but you are sacrificing and saying, hey, I'm trying to reach a goal. And so these are things that I know, they're not a necessity for me. So I talk about taking inventory. Just to give you an example, I just said about cable. Cable was one of the things that I cut out completely. I was paying my package. I had cable and internet, and I kept internet, but my cable was something like over $100 a month that I was paying towards cable. And I was like, well, I like watching my shows and things of that nature, but I can get by with Netflix. I even got rid of Hulu as well, and Hulu's just $6. But y'all, stuff adds up. At the time it was just $6. But just thinking about those things like, hey, I don't necessarily need this to survive. And so let me cut back. I got rid of cable. I also got rid of my gym membership. And so gym may be one of those things where you're like, I don't want to cut down on the gym. Like, I gotta stay healthy. But I didn't stop working out. I just got rid of my gym membership. Like, I was paying almost $100 a month for my gym membership. And maybe that's not something you can get rid of completely. Maybe for you that goes in the second category, which is like, what can I cut back on? Maybe you don't go to the most expensive gym and do 17 personal training sessions that cost you $50 per session. Maybe you go get a Planet Fitness for 4 months and then you come back. You know what I'm saying? So there are things you can do to kind of either cut or remove completely to help your expenses. So the gym was another thing that I got rid of. Cable was another thing that I got rid of. And In taking inventory, I also started looking at what I spend on food. You would be surprised how much eating out adds up. Whereas if I were just to cook and eat that thing called leftovers, I would save so much money. And even still continuing to eat healthy, like it doesn't have to be this expensive thing, but that was another area where I cut back. I stopped eating out so much. I stopped going and getting that coffee that's $6, $7 for 1 cup of coffee, where $7 I can make me a salad and eat it for 2 days, you know? So food was one of those things that I cut back on to be able to save. Eating out, I cut back on eating out so that I'm not, you know, spending all my money. This one I feel like also goes in the cut back on category, but it's almost a no-brainer, but it's not. It's shopping. Give yourself a budget. Like, make a budget. And even if your budget has to look different for the time that you're saving for your home, that's fine. That budget may be bare bones. Like, I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna sleep, and I'm willing to, you know, maybe give myself $50 a month to go to Target. That ain't enough for Target. I don't know, that ain't enough for Target. It ain't. But whatever it is, like, you can cut back. So for me, it was cutting back on shopping. Like, you know, get off of Fashion Nova and Shein. Stop spending. Yes, you get 17,000 articles of clothing for $40, but that's still $40. Right? So cutting back on the shopping, cutting back on the eating out, and also the activities. Start looking for some free activities. I am one of those people who loves to do things, right? I love to go places, I love to travel. During the time that I'm purchasing a home, maybe I'm not traveling as much, right? Maybe I cut back and I start doing things locally in the city that are free. Maybe I go to the free market on Saturday, or I go for a walk or hike or something, and that gets me out of, you know, my normal routine. That's something new for me to do, but I'm not spending $200, $300 on a hotel room this month. So you have your 2 categories where you can completely remove, you can cut back on. So bucket your money and start seeing ways that you can reduce your expenses. So the second thing that I did was put money away ahead of time. Don't even let it hit that bank account with the rest of my spending money. Start, if you are on direct deposit or however you have to do it, however you get paid or it's set up, put that money into an account that you can't readily go grab. Because if it comes between my house that I don't have yet and, you know, this new hair product, that's not a good example. My house I'm saving for, but I can't yet see, right? But there are things like something goes on sale and, you know, you want to get that you can see and you can grab immediately. So for me, it was better for me to take the money that I was putting towards the house out of my tangible money that I can use, meaning put it in an account that doesn't have a card attached to it. You got to make a transfer and it's going to take 2 to 3 business days. That way you're not dipping into your savings, right? Your intentional money that you're putting away during the time that you're saving for the home. So that's the first thing, is take inventory. What can you cut? What can you remove? Second, put your money away ahead of time, right? Don't even let it hit the card or the account that you have readily access to. That was the second thing that I did. I sold off some furniture that I had when I moved into this home that I had taken. Mind you, when I talk about repurposing is real. In my home, in my first home, I still had the dresser and nightstands that I had when I was 12 years old. Yeah. I had sanded them, repainted them, changed the knobs, same dresser set. So I knew I was getting rid of that, right? I was like, that is one of the things that is gonna go. But I went on Facebook Marketplace and I sold it, and I made a couple $100s from that set. So another thing that you can do on top of taking inventory of your expenses and putting that money away ahead of time is to start looking at what you have and saying, like, how can I make money from this? How can I sell this, right? Whether you have a table or whatever it may be for you, go ahead and say, okay, let me put this on Facebook Marketplace, see if I can make a couple bucks, and then take that money and immediately put it in that account that you cannot touch, okay? So those are the big things that I did. And honestly, guys, you know, my down payment wasn't huge for my first house, but those were the things that I did in order to save. Now, I will talk about the thing that I did, which, because I think it's perfect that it's around this time that I'm doing this, but it's your taxes. Y'all, I know if you get some kind of tax refund, don't go spend it all. Don't do that. Don't go buy up things that are going to depreciate as soon as you purchase them. I used, especially for my second home, because it was in April, what I got back from my taxes, I immediately put in that account that I just talked to you guys about that I can't touch, right? That it's going to take 17 different maneuvers to get to. And I didn't take my money and use it on like the next expensive. It is gonna be a sacrifice, right? But it is gonna definitely be worth it. And when you make up your mind that like, I am willing to sacrifice and put this towards a goal that I'm trying to achieve rather than having something here and the now, you'll be able to put that money aside and save. So yeah, I wanted to say that because this is around tax season now and people are getting refunds and this, that, and the third. Take that money, put it in an account that you can't touch. You don't need that bag. You don't need it. You don't need you don't need them new pair of shoes. You got shoes. You got shoes on right now. I guarantee, well, you may have shoes on right now. But either way, like, sacrifice, get it after the next 6 months, right? Something else will be coming out, something else will be new. Get it then. And I think that kind of falls into like, what can you cut back spending? But taxes is like money that's coming to you, just, you know, put it away. All right, so those are the things that I did to save, and I hope that was helpful, and I hope that some of those things, it doesn't sound like this grandiose or huge like nugget that I'm dropping in this video, like if you do this you can save $10,000 in 3 months. It's just not always that simple, right? It is the step by step, it is the day by day, it is the decision by decision that adds up over time. And that's what it was for me. Between cutting back the gym and cable and shopping, I was saving like $400 a month. $400 a month right there, just from cutting those things back. And then taking inventory and seeing budgeting, like, okay, I could probably, you know, save an extra 200, whatever it is, right? That works for you. Go ahead and do those things so that you're able to start saving. Let's get into expenses. So we have the known expenses, right? Or I won't even assume that everybody knows what the expenses are when you're buying a home. So there are closing costs. There is your down payment, that are the big ones, right? People know that your down payment, depending on the type of loan that you're getting, I did a conventional loan, and so it was 5% down. If you do like FHA, I think those are maybe 3.5. Again, I'm not a real estate agent, so don't come for me. But your percentage may vary. So depending on, and it's off of the price of the home, right? So 5% of the price of the home, the sale price of the home, is what your down payment will be. And then your closing costs are what you pay at the table for, you know, all of the fees and things of that nature, so that you're able to close. So just to give you guys a ballpark, right? So, and I'm not gonna give you specific numbers, but I will say that my down payment, so let's just say my down payment was $20,000. It was not, but we're just working with basic numbers. My down payment was $20,000. My closing costs were about 10, right? So my closing costs for me were about half of what my down payment was. So if my down payment was $1,000, closing cost $500. That's what it was for me when I sit here and look at the numbers. So included in my closing costs was like my homeowner's insurance. I had HOA at my first home, and so that is something that was wrapped in, I think it was 2 months of HOA dues and things of that nature. Those are things at the table, but there are some more things aside from your down payment and your closing costs that may be an expense when you're trying to buy a home. The first one for me was inspections. So I had like an HVAC inspection. I do know for sure I had an HVAC inspection, and I had just a normal home inspection. And I do want to say this before I get into expenses. Like I said in my first video, this is from my experience. It can vary. If you're buying a new home, there are incentives, especially like when I bought this home, the current home that I live in. If I used the preferred lender, then there was an incentive and they covered a portion of my closing costs. So just because I sit here and I say, you know, closing costs are this much and down payment is this much, there are incentives and things that you can do. And just because it is that set amount doesn't mean that that's the amount that you're gonna pay. And then I also had an appraisal. And so I did pay for the appraisal. Again, that was my experience with my first home. I'm kind of wrapping them both in together, using my first home as like the basis. If you're coming from an apartment, you have to think about things like an alarm system and installation. For me, moving into a brand new home, here I am jumping to this home, I had to purchase a refrigerator. I had to purchase blinds. Why they didn't have my house come with blinds, you know, it is what it is. I didn't even have a garage door opener for this home. So just want to give you a heads up, like there are some other expenses. There are ways in which movers is definitely an expense as well. And they are by the hour or however they're, you know, set up, depending on how much stuff you have, maybe a longer, depending on the travel time. You know, movers is an expense when you're buying a house too. So I want to just kind of lay those things out there for you guys so that you kind of have, oh, I've never thought about the fact that I've got to pay for a mover, or I never thought about the fact that there's an inspection that has to happen on top of, you know, the closing costs and the down payment, or, you know, there are some things that I can do to cut back to save. So I hope that in sharing these things, you found something that was useful for you. If you did, please let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also go ahead and hit that bell so you're notified of the next video in my Millennial Homebuyer series. And I will see y'all in my next one. Bye. Let's roll, let's roll, let's roll. My head looked like a goober, but we are here. Hey guys, I'm Amber and welcome. Why every time I do an intro, I can never do it right the first time? All right, you guys, so let's get into part 2, expenses and savings. I do want to say, if you have not seen my first video, must you ride your motorcycle right now, sir? When I talk about taking inventory, oof, golly, now my head itching. Grandiose. Ooh, yeah, grandiose. Did I pay for the inspection? We don't need to talk about that, Amber. Why are you going into that? They don't need to know that. You only got 3 minutes left before your memory card is full.